Hello and welcome to the Unconventional Podcast with Grace Hardy. Today we have the CEO of AAT, Sarah Beale, with us, so welcome.
Thank you very much, Grace. Pleasure to be with you.
Please could you give yourself a little introduction to the listeners?
Yep, as you've said, Sarah Beale, and very proud to be the CEO of AAT. I'm sure we'll get into it, but a long and winding career till I got there. Number of years now working at exec level, but lots of experience in different roles and starting very, very at the beginning with AAT as I left school in what would now be called an apprenticeship.
And so what made you decide to go down the apprenticeship route?
So to be honest, I didn't. And I didn't consciously decide to come into accountancy as a profession either. At the time, I think the profession, like many other professions, had not embraced apprenticeships as a route. I suggest we might have been still too snobby back in the day to believe that actually white-collar jobs, as they were called, could embrace people from different routes and different educational backgrounds. So I started as a trainee accountant in a small firm of accountants local to where I used to live.
What do you think were the most valuable lessons that you learnt from your apprenticeship?
I think they're probably the two lessons that I carry on learning every single day. And I think that's what happens to you if you want to grow. One is learn from absolutely everybody around you.
Yeah.
Not just those that you think are more senior and not just those that you think are brilliant. So I've learned as much about what I don't want to be and the person I don't want to be as I've looked at people and thought, wow, if I could be half the person you are, that's what I want to be. So my first one is learn from anybody and everybody, and anyone can be a mentor and help you. Different skill sets. And the second one is be open. So be open to new ideas, be open to your own development, and be open to being wrong.
Yes.
And I think too many of us, as you get to senior levels and senior jobs, believe that that's admitting defeat instead of actually admitting that you didn't get everything right first time.
And I think that's so important. And I remember one of my teachers said to me at school, Grace, you will never stop learning. And at that point, I think I was sitting my GCSEs and I thought, oh no.
I hope I do.
I was like, that is the worst thing you could have said to me. But he was so right in the fact that even now, every single day, I learn something new. And it's amazing to be around such amazing people like yourself as well to learn.
And we're all learning.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I've seen different programmes of mutual mentors, for example, where actually experienced people in the workplace are helping younger people who haven't got that experience. Yeah. And on other days, they reverse that and the younger people are helping them have access to social media to be a different vulnerable kind of person that they might be comfortable being. So, as I say, I've learned from all walks of life and all different levels of seniority as I've gone through it.
And I learn from my sister all the time. So she's younger than me. But I remember when I started my business, she came to me and taught me how to use TikTok because I had no idea how to use it. But it's also listening to those other people around you. But going back to the stigma of apprenticeships, how much do you think it's changed since you did one?
Massively. So we actually call it an apprenticeship.
Yes.
I think people who've been on one are really proud, self-included,
yes,
to say, I was an apprentice and look at me now.
Yeah.
I think that's self-fulfilling because people like me who come through that route really value other people who come through that route. You want to throw the ladder down, help other people get the start that you were lucky enough to have.
Yeah.
I think generally it has changed, not enough. And I think we still need to do much more to get parity.
Yes, definitely.
And I think that goes beyond apprenticeships and into the power of vocational practical learning as well. So I think that needs to be given exactly the same kudos. Higher education, it's just a different route.
I so agree. And for me personally, I've seen it from both angles. So when I was working in my apprenticeship, I trained a lot of graduates who had only done the theory. And then you realise that theory and practice are very different things. And I was able to learn more and do more than them because I've had that hands-on experience.
Exactly. I had exactly the same experience. One of my jobs was training in the people who came from university. Actually, they came in a grade above me at the time, and my job was to train them into the practical application of it.
How was your experience as a woman in accounting at that time? Because obviously the FCA report, Sexism in the City, came out in March, which highlighted some very big discrepancies between men and women in the industry. But how was your experience?
If I'm really honest, I'm not so sure when I started I was that aware. I think I was really grateful for a start, and both of the small practices that I trained in were brilliant in terms of looking after me.
Yeah.
It was like a family. They really put effort into training me. They made sure I had support mechanisms, etc., etc.
Oh, that's amazing.
So I was really lucky with both of those employers. Looking back, of course, there wasn't a female partner in the firm at that time. The more senior roles, even outside the partner, were held by men, in which case it probably made me just assume what my role was going to be.
Yes.
So I might not have thought I was thinking that. But it's the same old thing, isn't it? If you can't see someone that looks like you, then you don't imagine yourself as being in that position.
And it's very scary sometimes to be that first person as well.
Of course it is, yeah. And, you're conscious about making mistakes, aren't you? In a prior role, I was the first female CEO of an organisation that
well
was
done.
50 years old, and you had the burden of that. I wanted to be good. But actually, even if I made some mistakes, I could learn from them. And as I said before, pass the ladder down to other people and make it easier for them, help them on an easier route than you might have had.
Exactly. And you've also worked in construction. So is that gender bias as bad as people assume, or did it surprise you when you worked in that industry?
It surprised me, both good and bad. So the gender disparity in construction is massive. There's no way of getting around that. I think we used to quote, and it'll be out of date now, but there was only 4% women on site.
Oh my goodness.
And even when you counted people in the office environment of construction companies, that only got into double digits and early double digits. But it also surprised me on the flip side. So working in it in 17 years, I saw that change.
Yes.
I saw senior women becoming more and more the norm. At the beginning of my career, when I started to be sort of in senior management, there might have only been me in a room with men. That did start to change. And I would always say that my experience personally, I had mentors and support mechanisms every bit as much in men as I did in women. So there were men who absolutely championed me in a brilliant way, because they didn't patronise me as a woman. They made you earn your stripes. They made you work as hard as everybody else, but then gave you every opportunity as well. So it surprised me in terms of the people who were open to that. But I think the demographics in construction in terms of gender and ethnicity are still quite woeful.
And so how do you think that we can improve those biases in terms of gender and ethnicity, not just in accounting, but in other industries as well?
So all of it is about education. We've touched on apprenticeships. There are lots of pieces of research that identify apprenticeships attract people from different socio-economic backgrounds. Inevitably, that brings in ethnicity. Training people and making flexible working means that actually, whether we like to admit it or not, women are still predominantly the carers. They're still predominantly those that have childcare burdens more than men. So actually making their route back to work is as important as when we attract them. I think lots of companies spend a lot of time and effort recruiting and then not in making sure that actually after career breaks they can come back, they can catch up with their counterparts, they can go on and be promoted. But also, as we've said, you've got to see people in those positions that look like you, talk like you, came from where you do, and then you'll believe that could be you as well. So the reality will get rid of the perception, and that'll become the reality.
Exactly. You've employed thousands of people. What traits do you look for when you're employing someone?
When I am recruiting, or even when I'm promoting people, I like to think of 3 stages. So I call it smile, skill, experience.
Love that.
So smile, it's got to be the right person. They've got to share your values. They've got to share the company's values. Otherwise, there's just no point. However brilliant they are, it's not gonna last, and it's not gonna be a happy marriage. So I think it was First Direct that always used to say, hire the smile, train the skill. Get the right person. The second bit is skill. So that person's either got to have those skills or got the capacity to grow them. And then experience, we can't get away from it. The more you do, the better you're going to be, hopefully. You can embed that experience in others. So those 3, but in that order.
Yeah.
So the first one, if they're not a fit with me and my organisation, don't entertain it. If I don't think that they have the capacity to do the job properly, and then help them get the experience and try and retain that, is a happy balance.
And I think what you've said about the smile is so important, because especially when I was getting into my apprenticeship, you don't need the skills because you've come out of sixth form, but you need the passion, and you can't teach someone passion.
No, you can't, and you can't teach somebody value set or
No.
what they believe in. That comes from within. And that's not to say my company's got the right values and somebody else hasn't, but they are our values and we want everybody to live and breathe them. We can help people get the skill, we can help people get the experience as we go through.
Also, as an employer, you hire apprentices as well. And so how accessible do you think apprenticeships are now? If you're here because you're interested in a career in finance, there's no better place to turn than AAT. I should know, that's how I started out. Every year, thousands of school leavers, finance professionals, and career changers choose to study AAT qualifications. They come out with a qualification that employers value, increased salary potential, and a wide range of career progression opportunities. Did you know a large number of FTSE 100 CEOs come from an accountancy background? You can study at home or in the classroom. Depending on your circumstances, you may be able to get your studies funded. You can also earn and learn in the workplace as an accounting apprentice. Find out more about careers in finance at aat.org.uk/unconventional.
So they're more accessible, and it's one thing that actually AAT have not hired enough apprenticeships. So that's something we're changing in the next year or so. But it's not just, I think, about making the opportunity accessible, number one, but it's about actually delivering the apprenticeship properly.
Yes.
So the reason I haven't gone gung-ho and taken on more apprentices in the last couple of years is we're going through a lot of change. I wanted to make sure that those that we took on, we could, one, support throughout their apprenticeship and get through. And then secondly, that it wasn't just for a training programme. There was going to be something at the end of it. And there's a role and a meaningful opportunity for people. We're at that point now. We have actually had, and I won't say her name because she'll be mortified, but we've got an apprenticeship who just absolutely blew me away with how amazing she is. And she's one of those people that you think, gosh, you could do whatever you wanted in the future.
Oh, that's incredible. I always think apprenticeships are great and we always want more of them, but I think quality over quantity is so important because you can roll out apprenticeship schemes, but if you don't have the support in place, people will drop out, and it's a lot of investment from employers as well to have an apprentice. But it's also having a role after the apprenticeship. I know a couple of companies that just give the apprenticeship and then they go, and now you're out. And I think that's such a harsh way of doing it.
And that used to be the model back in the day a lot, and it depended on funding. So there was absolutely employers, without a doubt, that chased funding.
Yeah.
At one stage, believe it or not, most of the funding came up front. So people taking on apprentice could get the funding, but not therefore see them through their apprenticeship happily.
That's very scandalous.
Happily that's been changed because we've learnt from that. There's got to be something. So when we've been addressing our policy internally, and we're going to be in a glass house with me preaching about it, we want to do it properly. We want to bring somebody in, give them the training programme, and that is a job. Now, thereafter, can I promise them onward promotion? Absolutely not. They'll have to go and fight for that for themselves. But they wouldn't be kicked out at the end of their training programme.
Which I think is so important because you train as an apprentice for a job for life. But have all those skills through your apprenticeship, those people skills, communication skills, the on-hand experience and the qualification, so you can go throughout your life and really get a job anywhere.
There's so much transferable skills, isn't there?
So many.
And I think actually we call them, the power skills
Yes.
now. They're going to be at the core of every single job. And I would encourage everybody when they're talking about what to learn, and everybody's really worried about AI and how that's going to change it. And it will. It absolutely will. But we are going to need the core skills of people that can get on with people.
Yes.
People that communicate really effectively and in different ways. Skills in leadership. They're all the things that every single employer bangs on about wanting. The other stuff, we can develop some training programmes. And people will go in a million different careers nowadays.
Yeah.
But there's going to be a core of, if you've got that, you can really supercharge your career thereafter.
On the flip side, how do you think employers can make apprenticeships more accessible for younger people from different demographics?
I guess we can all do better at where we recruit from and how we advertise. So, it's no point advertising in The Guardian because that's where I would maybe look for a job. But actually reaching people, so using different social media platforms and possibly explaining better the power of an apprenticeship.
Yes, definitely.
So I think, some of our level 2 entrants are on £20,000 a year. And I don't think everybody knows that. So people might still have in their head, apprenticeship, you're not really going to get paid. You're going to be sent a photocopy.
Make cups of teas. Yes.
It's not that old-fashioned view of work experience that we used to have. So I think promoting that, and then more and more of this,
Yes.
saying to people, that's maybe where you start. And do you know something? You might do an apprenticeship in X and decide that you like Y.
Yes.
Go and do Y after it.
And that's so true. Especially for me, I didn't necessarily want to be an accountant. I don't think many people set out to be an accountant, but that's just my personal opinion. I wanted to do an economics degree apprenticeship. But
that was still really serious, though. I think probably I was still at the rock star stage of,
Really?
finding a way not to work or doing something really
Well,
terribly
I think
exciting.
up until the age of 15, I wanted to be in the circus.
There you go.
That's what I wanted to do. And then that dream shattered and I had to pick something serious. So economics apprenticeship it was. But because I'm very dyslexic, I got to the assessment centre and the task was a timed essay. And so I obviously did not get the apprenticeship. So then I thought very naively at 17, what's close to economics? Tax. And then started applying for all these tax apprenticeships, but it was too late in the year. So they moved me to an accounting one. And now here I am.
Happy path. These things are meant to happen.
Exactly. But I think having transferable skills is so important because you can do your apprenticeship and then at the end decide that it's not actually for you, because so many people go into apprenticeships when they're 16, 17, 18 and you don't necessarily know what you want to be when you're older, but you have to go through these and get these qualifications so you can understand what you like and what you don't like.
Exactly, and try it. Do you know what I mean? You've got nothing to lose, have you? But a bit of experience to know that's not what you like. Even that's just as important.
Exactly. And so I obviously love accounting now. It's fabulous. But I've also realised that I have a massive passion for helping other young people start their own businesses like I have, and financial education, because I've realised throughout working that that's what's really important to me. AAT has the campaign Be Your Own Boss, which I think is absolutely fabulous. So in your own words, do you want to explain what it means?
So Be Your Own Boss is literally says what it doesn't contain, hopefully, is accountancy, which is why, honestly, I think it's just such a fabulous even springboard for people.
Yes.
So all the way through from people who just want some basic skills.
Yeah.
So there's people who are entrepreneurs, they're going to start their own business, but actually terrified of finance. Most people are terrified of finance that aren't.
I think that is everyone.
Yeah. So actually, and you mentioned it, gaining that financial literacy at that level to be your own boss.
Yeah.
Knowing the questions to ask, more importantly, knowing who to go to when you shouldn't and don't know the answer.
Yes.
Because not everybody is going to be a fully qualified accountant.
No, and what is important to say is that being an accountant isn't a protected term. And so everyone can go around saying that they're accountant even if they have no formal qualifications.
Absolutely. And the more people that know that, then the more we can prevent people from going to the wrong or making the wrong choices.
Yes.
Without a doubt, and AAT are absolutely campaigning to make it a protected term because our professional members and our licensed members deserve not to be in the same bracket as people who don't do CPD, who don't keep themselves up to date and, don't give their clients the level of support.
Be Your Own Boss campaign is so important because so many clients come across and they start their own businesses because they have such a passion for what they do, not necessarily because they know anything about finance. And so having a place where you can go to sort of educate yourself if you can't afford an accountant or you're a bit too scared to get one yet is such an amazing platform. But going back to financial education, do you think that it should be something that is taught in schools?
Gosh, yeah. And actually should be.
Yeah.
So it was mandated a few years ago to get financial education in schools. In reality, and I think that was 2021, in reality, since then, we know that 90% of students aren't getting it.
Yeah.
That's because 9 out of 10 schools aren't captured by that rule because they're academies, private schools. Those that are getting it, we're told actually, only 58% are being taught it from that 10%.
Yes.
And on average, I think they said it was 48 minutes or 58 minutes a month.
Which is crazy.
How much you can learn in that.
I do more Duolingo per month than financial education being taught in schools.
It's shocking as a core foundation that isn't going to go wrong for anyone.
Yeah.
So I'm a massive, massive fan of practical for real life stuff.
Yes.
Who doesn't need to know how to balance their bank, how to look after their money?
But also just how to read a bill.
Exactly. And it's so worrying. So, I see those adverts on the telly when they're advertising for credit cards and it says, 400% APR. And I'm like, who takes those out? I've even asked my friends and they've said, I don't know what APR is. So if someone's going to give me a credit card and I need a credit card,
then you'll take it.
I'm really happy. And they're the very people who often can ill afford to make those decisions. So for me, it's real life skills, getting people that. Then second to that, it's a confidence booster.
Yes, definitely.
I know I found myself in boardrooms really quite young, and I watched people in the boardroom, and as soon as I started using financial terminology, they went, okay, yeah, whatever you said, yeah, that's absolutely brilliant. And I realised, actually, what a powerful thing that is, that, I could talk about really simple things in my mind, break-even points, payback periods.
Sounds very professional.
Exactly. But they're terms that everybody in that room could and should have been really, really comfortable with. And it gives you an edge. It's one of those things. Then, of course, like you and I, you want careers in finance, you take it to a whole new level.
Yeah.
But for me, these budding entrepreneurs, I think the statistic is by year 3, 50% of small and micro businesses fail.
And do you think that's because of lack of financial education? I started my career studying for the AAT qualification whilst working as an accounting apprentice. I've seen firsthand the value that apprentices bring to the workplace. If you're a business looking to develop or grow your finance function, it's a no-brainer. You'll be developing motivated, enthusiastic employees who learn practical skills whilst gaining a formal qualification. You can hire apprentices to study an AAT qualification while they work or upskill your existing employees. Plus, there's funding available to cover your training costs. To find out more on why apprenticeships make great business sense and how to get started, go to aat.org.uk/unconventional.
Without doubt a contributory factor, because you're not telling me that those entrepreneurs all haven't come up with brilliant ideas. That's what their skill set is. That's their superpower. But they either don't know how to manage practically or who to go to get the right support to manage and grow their businesses. So them even knowing the right questions to ask means they're not going to be paying a fortune for the wrong advice and guidance, and then educating them on, and I would say it, but go to an AAT licensed practice, and that's the people who can help supercharge your businesses.
And I think that's so important, but it's also important for everyone at different ages. So, for example, if you're a university student or an apprentice, you need to learn the skills of how to budget, whether that's budgeting your student loan, maintenance loan, or your salary. It's so important. And then from that, you can start saving and investing and doing all those things that people talk about but seem really far-reached.
Absolutely. I mean, I was out in, we've got a community in Botswana, and we were talking to budding entrepreneurs out there that were starting their businesses and wanted some financial literacy support. But what I learned is that it's no different actually wherever you are.
Really?
What they were saying to me is, I've got this absolutely fabulous idea, but I literally went bankrupt because I didn't realise when the money came in that wasn't mine. Now, that might sound really, really obvious, but they hadn't appreciated to put the money away to pay their bills. Let alone the long-term planning of, do you know something, I might have been able to buy another business in 5 years if I'd put that away, really invest in my own, take employees on. So all of that, I think, is the basics. And then, like I say, the Be Your Own Boss campaign is as much for non-accountants, but then, of course, for us, we want entrepreneur accountants, people who are going to start their practices like you have and actually are more likely to help those SMEs. So it's kind of like small businesses helping small and medium businesses grow. And 99% of the UK economy is small and micros.
I know, and I think that's amazing. And I think it's something like 1.6 million self-employed females now in the UK, which is amazing. And I think in the last 40 years, it's risen by 148%, which is incredible.
It's incredible. I mean, our membership is about 57% female.
That's incredible as well.
Yep. And young business owners through AAT has risen 65% in the last few years. So we've got young and females coming through. But obviously, we're still talking about female gender parity in 2024.
I know.
The big headline this week, first female chancellor.
Yes.
Obviously amazing. Brilliant to see a lady in it. But really, 2024, should we be in a position where we're really amazed by that? 50% of the population, we should have been there before now.
We should have, but at least we're there now.
Exactly.
AAT is such a nice family in a way. I speak to so many licensed members and they are nothing but supportive and helpful.
Which is something I found coming back into the sector that really did surprise me.
How come?
So I've never experienced in other sectors the willingness to support one another in such a tight community. Like, I do believe it's predominantly AAT. I think for whatever reason we've generated and harnessed an amazing community. But the number of people who are helping potential competitors, they could be seen as competitors.
Yeah.
And literally just want to make sure that they're supported, they don't fall into any bear traps.
Yeah.
It's really, really impressive that people give their time to do that, because in sectors I've seen is people are literally heads down, bums up, I'm looking after my own business, thank you very much, that's all I can do. And fair enough. But actually, I see lots of our community going out of their way to say, oh my goodness, whatever you do, don't do that, I did that.
Yeah.
I can save you from that. I think that is so, so powerful. But what I've seen is the community is that's what keeps it together.
Yeah.
It's really impressive.
It is. And honestly, it's such a nice environment to be in, because corporate can be quite cutthroat sometimes, to say the least. And so I was a bit nervous going into the entrepreneurial world, if that's what you want to call it, because you're very alone, because it's just you. But AAT is just, everyone's been there for me and sent me templates and answered my calls on a Friday evening and all that sort of stuff. And that is what's so nice. I mean, when we went to Accountex, I bumped into so many AAT members and we all had a nice little catch up. And it was so, so lovely. And I don't think you really get that anywhere else, not that I've seen.
I've not experienced it. And it is really powerful. And of course, that generates people like you who are wanting to give back where they can as well. And then that becomes the culture and the expectation, as opposed to an expectation of a fire pit and everyone's going to be at you. Actually, I think people join our community knowing they're going to get some help.
And I think that's what's so, so important. Obviously, you're a massive spearhead for apprenticeships. But what do you think about the good old debate, university versus apprenticeships?
So I would never, ever say one is right and the other one is wrong. So I have friends for whom the university route was absolutely right. They look back with complete fondness. For them, it was a real independence that they wouldn't have had necessarily in their eyes. And also, of course, some people, that's the way they learn.
Yeah.
And other people, just at that point in life, that's the experience they want.
They want the uni experience.
And the final thing is, some jobs, quite frankly, are going to need that level of degree and that level of theoretical study for some elements. For me, it was a really, really easy choice for me. I absolutely wanted financial independence. I didn't want my entire existence to be about the learning, educational-wise.
Yeah.
I learned doing.
Yeah, same.
So I was more than, I wouldn't say happy at the time, but I was okay with going back to college and doing my studies. But as long as I could put that into meaningful practice. And then in practical terms, the level of debt at which people can come out of university with is making it a real choice. So I think on average it can be 60,000.
Which is huge.
Or up to 60,000 for the whole term. When I personally equate that into 3 years of study, at a level 2 is earning, AAT is earning 20k, that's earning 60k versus potentially a debt of 60k. And if it's right for you, don't let anyone tell you it's not. For me and my learning style, and I'll be honest, the things that I've recommended to my godchildren and my friends' kids is really think about an apprenticeship, because for me, you get your cake and you eat it.
Oh, I 100% agree, and I'm a big promoter of apprenticeships now because I've seen the value in them. My sister, for example, she's gone to university because she needs a master's, and there isn't currently a forensic psychology apprenticeship. So she needs to go to university.
Of actually that route is the route that you have to take, and good for you for doing it. But actually now they are broadening apprenticeships.
They are, teacher apprenticeships.
The teacher apprenticeships. The more we get for that, for me, it's all about choice. So actually, we're offering different routes, different ways of learning, because we all do learn differently. And we all mature at different stages, and we all want different stages. I love people who return back to a career and actually say, do you know something, I want to do a degree apprenticeship in something completely different because my life's there now and I can invest in me. And I think, wow, at one time that would never have happened. And mature people would not have wanted to be called an apprentice. Yeah. But now it's like, well, yeah, if that's the route, that's brilliant. I'm earning, I'm getting the educational background, but I'm also getting the practical support.
And also upskilling is so important. So my mum used to be a training provider for an NHS apprenticeship, which was a level 5 apprenticeship. And so all these, mainly women who were mothers that couldn't take the time out to go back to university and take that time out and not earn, could then go on this apprenticeship. They could still work, earn money, upskill, and then get in the higher band in the NHS, which I thought was absolutely incredible.
again, just routes
Yeah.
that appeal to different people at different stages of their life. The more we have, then the more people we're going to attract. And, there's an absolute war on talent at the moment. So why wouldn't, as an employer, me open as many routes as I can to appeal to as wider group of people as I can?
As a CEO of AAT, what's been one of your highlights? What's something that you're really proud of?
Gosh, there's loads. I feel really selfish because I'm not so convinced this is my pride, but I take pride in it and I've inherited it, is the value set of AAT. So we've talked about the AAT community.
Yeah.
But that actually expands to my colleagues internally. And what I see every single day, both in the wider community and internally, is people going the extra mile,
Yeah.
people actually caring about what they do.
Yeah.
I've had examples of colleagues saying, I'm not going to go home until this is fixed for this student because that's not what I want for them. I want them. And then they chase it up and they follow it up with people
That's
because they really
incredible.
care. So I'm going to be really selfish in saying I'm proud of that.
Yeah.
I'm not so sure that I can take the credit for it. But in truth, as a CEO, I didn't believe that when I came in. So that's how it felt. That's what was sold to me. And I thought, we'll see if it's really that when I get in. And it really is. And you can't buy that. The same as the wider community. You
Yeah.
can't buy that loyalty, that passion for what we do. So for me, that's the absolute highlight of what I do.
The people internally make such good relationships with accountants and other apprentices. And so they also listen to us when they're creating products and things like that to make sure that that's actually what people want. And they're so good at communicating and making those relationships. So I was at Accountex and one of your colleagues had won this key ring that had a little calculator on it. And she was like, Grace, I've been waiting because I've got this for you. She was like, I want you to have it. And I just thought it was the cutest thing ever. But they make such good relationships with us that it makes us feel like part of the family.
And I think many of my colleagues think of it as an extension.
Yeah.
In fact, they don't kind of think we're on the inside, they're on the outside.
Yeah.
It's part of the whole AAT family, which, as I say, is quite amazing.
It is, and it's honestly just so lovely to be a part of. So thank you. What do you think is next for apprenticeships and AAT over the next 5 years?
For AAT, as I've said, we're embarking on a 2030 strategy. We are determined to get global recognition for bookkeepers and accounting technicians, but at the level at which they should be seen globally. So I think a lot of countries are only just starting to wake up to actually it doesn't have to be a chartered accountant that you engage for all of your activity. There can be lots and lots and lots of value add from bookkeepers and accounting technicians. Yeah. And that's terribly exciting because I think that gives kudos to our community as well globally for what we do and the level at which you all work. In terms of us practically, I've said we want to develop more apprenticeship programmes ourselves and make sure that that glass house is safe that we live in. For apprenticeships, and for me, apprenticeships is an extension of what I've fought for many, many years, and that is the parity for vocational practical skills.
Yeah.
And apprenticeships is a great model that brings all of that together, but lots of people study AAT not on an apprenticeship, but for me, get all the elements of an apprenticeship if they get a good employer. It might not be called that. I want to see apprenticeships become a larger part of the career ladder in terms of breadth and scope. They are going across more and more and more professional sectors, which is brilliant. And as we've said, different levels. So I think the more that can develop, the better. And I'd like to see support for employers. Mm-hmm. A lot of employers are really scared to take on an apprentice. They don't know what's going to be involved in it. They don't want to do it and get it wrong. Yeah. They don't want to be that employer. So I think the government could help employers get the confidence as much as making it really attractive for young and old people to come through that apprenticeship route. So I think it's really exciting times. And I can see more and more. I listen to your podcast with Robert Halfern and others. And I think more and more people are waking up to our country needs greater levels of productivity.
Yeah, 100%.
That means we need to be doing more practical things much quicker and generating that growth. And I think apprenticeships and AAT are absolutely part of that solution.
I definitely think so. And do you think that make apprenticeships more competitive?
It's really interesting because I see two things happening in the marketplace.
Yeah.
I think there is higher levels of competition for the place. But I actually think there's, on the flip side, almost like a buyer's choice as well. So unless an employer is offering the right apprenticeship and the right level of support, there is, as I said earlier, an absolute war on talent. And I actually think there's as much competition that way of people saying, do you know something, if you're not going to pay me properly, you're not going to look after me properly, I don't see an end with you in that, I'll go and take my skill and my productivity elsewhere. So I think there's competition on both sides.
Definitely. And for me, when I was looking for an apprenticeship, culture was really important to me. And I had offers from the Big Four, and I spoke to someone who worked there before and someone who worked at the place where I decided to do my apprenticeship in the end. And he didn't have a good experience with the culture in the Big Four. So I'd rather go for a mid-sized firm that has a better culture, and I feel like I'm more looked after and there's more support for me as an apprentice.
And I think that goes back to my smile bit, and that works both ways.
Yeah.
That works for finding the right company that's a good fit for you.
Definitely.
That does something that makes you want to get out of bed. I've always had to believe in what I'm doing and get some enjoyment out of it long term. But that could be different things for different people. So finding that really good fit for you both ways, I think, is really important.
What is a piece of advice you would give to a young person trying to find an apprenticeship?
The number one is almost don't worry too much about the subject. I mean, it's got to be something you're interested in and you think you're gonna enjoy, but actually finding the right placement for you, I think is absolutely vitally important. You want to go and be the best version of yourself, and I think you can only be the best version of yourself if you feel comfortable and you feel confident and you want to be there. So I would say, just as much as I'd say to an employer, never ever compromise on picking the right person. If I've got a lineup for interviews and they are not the right people for me, I'll go back out to market and I'll find the right person. That works on the flip side as well. And then, you know, when you do find that apprenticeship, give it your all. But don't be too worried, because I think the world is literally going to be evolving so quickly. You will get opportunities that you didn't even know were there. There's jobs now that I think, how did I not know that was even a job when I was at school? Like, Who knew? No one told me that. I'd have gone and done that. But now I think actually the workforce is open to retraining, upskilling far more than it ever has been.
Yeah.
So get in, get something you enjoy, get your qualifications and make sure you've got something under your belt, and then continually keep open to that. You know, who knows?
Anything can happen.
Yeah.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for yours. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.